My name is Manoj. I'm going to introduce myself. He's done because we're getting started. Is that okay? So I'm Manoj. I'm from Mumbai originally. Live in San Diego now. I've been in America 35 years, 22 in India. So I think I'm more American. And I had to ask who's an American, right? There's a lot of debate. Who's an American? And I think anyone who shops is an American. Is the American Descartes. I shop, therefore I am. Um, there you go. It's a capitalism, right? So we're going to do something very unique. All the deities are going to be put on the circle of Shiva as archetypes in a hero's journey. Each of us are on a journey, and the whole thing is like very new. And to be doing this, I think we should pray first. So please close your eyes. And we'll chant with a Shiva mantra. And a popular mantra chanted in many ashrams is this invocation. It's more an invocation than a mantra. So close your eyes. And this is a centering practice. Feel the senses where the breeze, the sounds, the aliveness is Shiva. And the mantra, the invocation to Shiva is Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchitananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om Namah Shivaya, which means I bow to the Shiva consciousness everywhere. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave. So the Gurave is, the Guru is within us. We don't have to surrender our power to anyone. The real Guru is within us. We need a teacher who unlocks the Guru, absolutely. But we are consciousness. We're all the same. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchitananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. So Satchitananda Murtaye, these statues, murtis, are forms of Satchitananda. Sat is existence, truth. Chit is awareness. Ananda is bliss. So when you're aware of the truth that you are consciousness, there's an ananda that bubbles from being in the flow state. So Satchitananda Murtaye, these murtis, these statues are forms of Satchitananda. Nishprapanchaya Shantaya. So when you're able to literally disconnect from this world, Nishprapanchaya, then there's peace, Shanta, Shanti. Niralambaya Tejase. You can be like a lotus. And the aspect of lotus is untaintedness. You drop some water on a lotus, it comes right off. That's Niralambaya. And then you become Tejas, the shining one. In other words, our real potential is to be gods and goddesses. And Joseph Campbell had a saying, Naha Devam Devo Archayate, which means by none other than a god can a god be worshipped. And I feel he got it, So to truly understand a murti, a deity, you have to realize the divine within you. And that's what these teachings are going to be about. It's about the hero's journey and really finding the Holy Grail, which is the God within us. God is not separate. Even Nietzsche got it when he famously declared God is dead. Or the Zen There's a Zen saying, you see a Buddha on the road, kill him. Because the Buddha is not the other. You are the Buddha. There is no separate God. So paradoxically, at the highest level, you have to kill the notion of a separate God because you are the divine. Please open your eyes. Welcome to the gods. So if you have any questions at any time, ask. I'm here to serve you, you know. And the workshop is on the hero's journey. And I'm going to put everything on the circle of Shiva. Philip, welcome. And how's the air up there? He happens to be like 7 feet. No, it's a joke. Um, the we're all going through the hero's journey, right? You're familiar, right? The hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, the Star Wars mythology, George Lucas. He was he was inspired by Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell looked at mythologies around the world and he arrived at what is called a monomyth. So there's a pattern in all the myths. And each of these patterns is what we follow in our own journey. That's why we resonate with storytelling and movies, you know. And storytelling is really potent. We have a storytelling brain which is very susceptible to stories. So I'm a storyteller. And when you tell a story, there's a sequence. If you want to be a good storyteller, there should be a cortisol moment. It's like, whoa, there's a call to attention. Then it puts you in the funnel of dopamine. So you get like, you identify with a character in the story. You start to get some dopamine hits. And then at the end of the funnel, you get what is called oxytocin moment, where you're in the bhav and it's the love, the hugging hormone. So that's the power of storytelling. And when you couple the storytelling with these archetypes, there's a philosophy behind them. So this goes beyond the storytelling which is regular to storytelling based on a philosophy. Okay, and that philosophy is about self-realization. So every story, you know, there's a message. So in the hero's journey, the first quarter of Shiva is the material world we live in. Thank you, Kurt. And I've introduced Kurt, but I'm going to reintroduce him, and he knows I'll pull him in at a very random moment, right? And so my friend Kurt is like literally, he's pulling me out of my comfort zone because I've been doing this 18 years, and you know that's part of a journey. You will never grow until you step outside your comfort zone. That's what Shiva is doing with his foot up. So Kurt has been helping create this whole teachings into a digital ashram. Because we do these retreats in a temple, I get a lot of people, 50, 60 people. I do these workshops at events, I do teacher trainings, but what happens when I'm not doing it? How do you build regular engagement? That's where the digital comes in, unfortunately. You know, we still have to use that. And personally, you know, I want to be relevant. When you get older, you want to be relevant. Yeah, right? I don't want to be put to pasture. So, you know, we have to be flexible, especially when we get older. Like the flexible trees don't break. If you are rigid, you know, a dead body is rigid. A young body, baby is flexible. So you have a choice. And it's best to adapt to the times and the culture we live in. We're living in very interesting times, you know. So the first quadrant is really the material world we live in, which is the bottom of the Abraham Maslow pyramid, the hierarchy of needs, you know. We want the material success, we want the education, we want the relationship, we want the house, we want the picket fence, we want a car, we want a dog. That's important, right? I would love to be a dog in America, especially a service animal. People walk around, I see that everywhere now. And I would love to be a cow in India also, but not the other way around, right? So, so the material world is, you like that? Material world is the worlds that society sort of wants us to do. We're being manipulated, okay? Um, and some of us get a call to adventure. Very few sort of jump into the spiritual path right away, unless there's some past life, okay? There's some past life, and I can get into many evidence. I'm a scientist, so I'm into evidence-based spirituality. I'm heavy into proof. I actually did a PhD in chemical physics from Cornell. I don't know why I did that because I'm schlepping murtis now. I've been doing this 18 years. That got me depressed, you know. That corporate world, entrepreneurship, this brought me to the heart. That's the reason I'm doing this. That got me into learned helplessness. So that was my call to adventure. I had what is called a Kali moment. You familiar with a Kali moment? Right? When your life breaks apart, right? But it's for the better. This is Kali as the divine mother. Okay? We did a whole practice on Kali. Who was there at a retreat in July? I know one or two were here. Louis, you will come. But we had a very powerful Kali practice, right? So the retreat in July was about, can you draw a happy face on the formless? You know, that was a retreat. What's your story in Kali Yuga? You know, so Kali movement is, you know, you build this massive sandcastles, we make all these plans, and Kali as the ocean washes it away. But Kali is a force for the good, very powerful force. So she removes the things that don't serve us. Okay, I can get into Kali big time. This arms are like karma. She removes the effects of karma. She wears a skirt of arms. She has a garland of skulls, which like metaphorically are like samskaras, the vasanas, the addictive tendencies. Buddhism calls it 108 defilements, you know, so she wears them for us. Then she removes the root cause, the main demon, Raktabija, which is avidya, ignorance. And then she steps on a dude here, probably her ex-boyfriend, yeah? But that is Shiva. Shiva is, he arrests Kali. He stops Kali's rampage, you know. But Shiva is the witnessing consciousness and Kali is the Shakti. So you arrive at Shiva through Kali. That's why her tongue is sticking out. Tongue is the lingam, mouth is the cave of Shakti. There are a lot of hidden symbolisms on of that. I want to give you a taste. But I want to keep it at a higher level, otherwise we'll get stuck in the minutiae. Okay? If you want to know more, I wrote a 30-page document as a teacher training manual for Wanderlust Festival way back 7 years ago. I'll be happy to email it to you if you send me an email. And my booth has, I really don't have a business card, but you can take a picture of a flyer of my retreat. If you send me an email, I'll send you this 30-page document because many of you want to know. Just don't publicize it because Wanderlust charges for it, you know. They charge a couple $100. I mean, it's America, right? Capitalism. Soon people will charge us for breathing air. My teachings are open source. I keep everything, it's like gravity, silly to charge for that. So even the retreats I do in my temple, they're practically free. I charge like $108 for 4 days. I also feed you. I feed you like nice, organic, vegan, all that. So it's not the money. I get 50, 60 people for the last 5 years. The first time I did, I think Lucas came. Is he here? Yeah, there you go. Still have to get used to your reduced size, Lucas. But we had over 100 people in that church. Remember in La Jolla? That was fun. And it's a lot of questions and more free thinking. So this is not like one group thing. I'm not into that. So it's not like I encourage free thinking heavily, and we get a lot of interesting different kinds of people. Um, so the Kali movement is the first quadrant is your life breaks apart, and then sometimes the hero refuses several times. Then Ganesh says what to do, right? And then slowly you start to you get it. I feel like depression is almost built in to the human existence. Is the existential crisis. Then you start to get in deeper, and my question to you is, who's the threshold guardian in the hero's journey? Ganesh, right? He's the lord of transitions, very similar to the Roman archetype Janus. If you're familiar, Janus has like two faces, and there's a temple in Rome with two entrances to Janus. And Janus and Ganesh are similar, sounds familiar, similar. Janus is lord of the anus, and Ganesh is lord of the Muladhara chakra, near the anus. And both are for threshold. And Ganesh is powerful. Everyone loves Ganesh. And we have a Ganesh here. Can everyone see that? It's a Ganesh with an attitude. I call him the toot Ganesh. Because most Ganeshs are sitting, peaceful. This Ganesh is standing. He looks like a little like warrior. But he looks to the side, to his hand, and says, talk to the hand. So that's why I call him a toot Ganesh. He's especially good for removing sort of obstacles in a massive way. So he has like a club. He has the axe. The axe, he kills what is called a alasasura, of a fire demon, but metaphorically it represents the passions, that can turn us into addictive. There's a strong addictive nature, right? Our bodies are being made addictive because of the food companies, right? He loves the sweets. He loves carbs. There's only one deity who doesn't, the prasad is not sweet, it's Hanuman. He gets a vada. Okay. But most of them like sweets. And then, so, we're being manipulated. The food companies manipulate our body. The tech companies manipulate our mind. There's junk food of the mind. So we got to watch it. Deep attention is a real currency in today's economy. So that Ganesh is powerful. He steps on a mouse. You see the mouse? It's hard, but he steps on it. And the mouse is his vehicle, but it's a mind. He steps on a mind and calms our mind. So when the mind is calm, like imagine, right, this mouse that's running around like a mice is calmed down, you don't sense obstacles because the real obstacles are here, right? You're calmer, and you act on synchronicity because you're not tuned out, you're fully present. And when you do that, Ganesh can put you in the flow. The flow is where your brain is between alpha and theta, between 4 and 8 hertz. And like almost like sinusoidal slow waves. And, athletes love that, but I'm talking about spiritual flow, where you're that way all the time. You know when you're not in the flow, when you're not in the flow. Otherwise, flow is our true nature. That's Satchitananda. So that's where the feel-good neurotransmitters come up, like dopamine, anandamide. They have a neurotransmitter, anandamide, serotonin, norepinephrine. So we can have the joy from within. So that's the teaching here, that's the Ganesh archetype. So that's the threshold guardian. He gives you a taste of the possibilities. I've seen so many people get influenced by Ganesh, big time. I was in Wisconsin many years ago. I was just there last weekend, right, at the Midwest. But many years ago, they used to do yoga journal conferences in Grand Geneva, if anyone remembers that, right? I was there many years. I would teach workshops and I have a booth. An elderly gentleman walks up to me and he says he wants to get a Ganesh for his wife who was finishing a teacher training, a 200-hour teacher training. And Ganesh is a threshold. So everyone should have a Ganesh. He's almost like a default archetype. So for instance, my archetypes are Ganesh. Probably we both have a belly. And then Ganesh gives you wisdom. Not only removes obstacles, but wisdom. Wisdom is not intelligence, right? Intelligence is Google. Wisdom is converting the intelligence to day-to-day life, But then what uses wisdom if you don't use it to serve? So Hanuman is a powerful archetype for me too. And then I talked about Durga, who works on the shadow, right? So the Jungian journey, individuation is persona, the mask we wear, the ego, we claim that I did it, right? And then the shadow. We cannot do spiritual bypassing. It's very easy to do that in some spiritual circles, especially like this, Kirtan festival where people walk around and blessed out, but they don't really work on themselves. The shadow has to be integrated. On the flip side, the Jungian people, I teach to Jungian therapists, the bhav is sometimes lacking, the bhakti. So you want to integrate both approaches. So the idea of individuation is we're all different. We're all individuals. We're not a melting pot. We're more a salad bowl. Some of us are broccoli, but that's okay. Yeah. But underneath is a melting pot, oneness. And that oneness is Carl Jung's self, or the collective unconscious. And these archetypes, anima and animus, are buried there. Okay? That's where these archetypes come in. So I'm going back to the story in Wisconsin, right? This guy walks up to me, he says he wants to buy a Ganesh. It was a Ganesh this size. And I explained to him all the symbols of Ganesh, the axe, the noose, broken tusk, and how to work with it. So there are meditative practices you can do. And if you have time, we'll do a practice on one archetype. So he said, all this fine, but I don't believe you. He said, I'm an atheist. And atheism itself is like a belief, right? Of no belief. But I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, right? He's a potential customer. I'm still a capitalist, right? And Gandhi said, customer is God. So I said, as you wish. And he said he still bought the Ganesh. And he went to present to his wife. And in 5 minutes, he comes running back, holding the Ganesh, saying at that moment, they won a drawing to the Bahamas. There was a cruise, yoga journal. It was worth several $1,000s. And the whole day, he wouldn't let go of Ganesh. So, and then he takes the yoga teacher training. Next year, he becomes a meditation instructor, this retired man. And he gets a Shiva. So that's his hero's journey. So Ganesh is a threshold guardian. Does that make sense? He opens obstacle, removes, by removing obstacles, when you do your calling, you want some success. Otherwise, you're going to get discouraged. Ganesh gives success. Ganesh gave massive success to Tom Brady, New England Patriots. Because Tom Brady opens a locker room door, he shows reporters a statue of Ganesh. He has a dancing Ganesh. And he tells reporters, he helped me win 6 Super Bowls. Google it, you will see Tom Brady's Ganesh. And then Ganesh probably helped him deflate the football too. Sorry, I don't offend anyone in New England, right? Stepped on it, right. Stepped on the big football, yeah. So, Ganesh is threshold guardian, right? So think where you are in your life. Have you gotten a call to adventure? Have you had an encounter with a threshold guardian? Sometimes your threshold guardian is a person, a teacher perhaps, It doesn't have to be Ganesh. Anyone who sort of opens a door for you, okay? But Ganesh is really powerful. And then that's when you go to the second quadrant and you start to kayak the collective unconscious of Carl Jung. You're in a canoe, you're kayaking, and you're discovering archetypes. So one of the main things we work with is Durga. Because Durga works with your shadow. And Durga is here. I just want to give you a high perspective. She works with the stuff that doesn't serve us, but there's a lot of compassion because our shadow is part of us. And I'll talk about Hanuman's leap and I relate it to shadow when I come to Hanuman. And Durga, as I said, for me, she's a personal archetype. She protects me. And if you're, an empath, you can get what is called empathy fatigue, your boundaries aren't clear. So Durga can help you build a bitch bone, as I said, right? And then you have a turning point underneath. And the turning point happens when you've sort of gone around a corner. But it's never quite that, because every day can be hero's journey. Just when you think you got it, then your life can spiral, right? So it depends. The answer is we're always evolving. And then the third quarter, I'm going very quickly because we're going to get into some storytelling. Third quarter is Lakshmi, which is not my idea, it's Kurt's idea. Or maybe my idea. Maybe both. And the fourth quarter is where the hero or heroine goes back to teach. So Saraswati is a good one. Third quarter is also Bhakti, Hanuman. And fourth quarter is also Tara, right? The green Tara. So I would love to invite Kurt, who is on his own hero's journey, and Kurt has to take his own advice and be in the camera. So yeah, he instructs me not to go beyond a range. So I would love to have you share your journey with these archetypes.
He used to start off the presentation, he'd go into, what's your Kali moment? And so I would tell my Kali moment. And we have these long drives and these long flights now, and I go, you know, you keep bringing me in, and I keep telling this major Kali story, and I feel like I'm Debbie Downer, where I go up there and I go, this is how my life turned to shit. And then I go, now you keep going, you know? And I'm like, I want to do something different this time. So what we talked about was giving an example of how we can look at the Murtis, right, and turn it from where we have a call to adventure, Kali moment, and then go through a little journey of my life, but just how you can relate it to things that have happened in your life, and then have a different view of these Murtis before he really gets into the stories. So I was an MBA guy, had a really sweet-ass LinkedIn page, nice tight goatee, had a professional photographer do all the stuff, right, on a bridge, looked really cool in San Diego. Had a corner office, felt really important, met a beautiful woman. We decided to have a child. Didn't want to get married because that was just too traditional for us. And so we had a baby. We decided to have a destination wedding in St. Lucia. It was gorgeous, invited family and friends there. We got back into town, getting ready to go back to work, and I find out she had an affair. Wah, wah. 3 weeks after we had the actual marriage, and then you had the honeymoon after that, which was a week. So technically 2 weeks after we got back. So I was utterly devastated. So that was kind of like my Kali moment. I had now the wife, right, the child, 2 dogs, a house on 1/3 of an acre in San Diego County, which is like, that's a pretty big property. And I came from New Mexico before, so I had a lot more land up there. So I thought I had a pool. I had a pool. So I thought I had it all. An avocado tree. I had an avocado tree too. So I thought I had it all, and then it all kind of came crashing down. And that's usually where I would say, here you go, Manoj, right? And I was like, I need to do more, right? I need to do more. So that brought me to that place of, where do I go from here, right? My whole world was kind of crumbling down. I needed to find something else. So then it came to the challenges and the temptations. What am I going to do? Am I going to win her back? Am I going to go off on my own? Am I going to create a new life for myself? I had to move into a condo, and I don't like condos. So I had to deal with all of this stuff. I dealt with my Durga moments. So I met Ganesh, but I pretty much passed him right away. Went straight into my Durga of, I need to find strength, right? I was so beaten down. I needed to find some type of way to pull myself back out of it. But in that process, all this stuff kept coming up, all this shadow work that we talked about. And, Kali hit it, but then Durga and I had to work together, right, to really try to figure out who I was, why the marriage ended the way it did, and really what was my fault in that. And then going back to the relationship before that, and then back to my parents, and back to my childhood, and all that kind of stuff. So Durga kind of helped, the thought of that notion helped get me through that. Then I got into more of that Lakshmi phase. So I kind of turned the corner, right? I did the shadow work, I'm still doing it. We're all doing it, right? But I did a lot of that work, got into the Lakshmi phase of, okay, I need to process this now and be better, right? How can I not necessarily give back, but how can I just be better? I've identified these things about myself that aren't so great and that I accepted as part of me. Now it's time to start to shed that skin, like a snake would, right? Drop those attachments. And Lakshmi helped me do that. Now, Lakshmi is typically thought of as this goddess of abundance that when we need money, hey, Lakshmi, hook us up, right? Hook me up. I need a little coin. I never thought of. I mean, I don't get me wrong. When I first got my Lakshmi Murti, I was like, I need a little money because now I didn't have a job and I was left the corporate world and growing a big ass beard. It was about down to where my nipple. So I had a big old beard, looked like ZZ Top. Lakshmi and I worked together, and I figured out what I wanted to do. What I thought I wanted to do was go move in the woods and talk to squirrels. I didn't really want to see people like ever again. After my Durga moment, I'm like, I'm done. I'm checking out of society. But I felt that I needed to do something more to help, right? And Lakshmi actually gave me that notion of, well, what can I do? So when Manoj talks about how I dragged him into this digital stuff, oh, she dragged me into this digital stuff because I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm rocking an iPhone 5, people, and the only reason I'm still using this thing is because my 4 died, right? I didn't want anything to do with digital, but I felt like, we were just last weekend, flying to Wisconsin, and the guy sitting in the seat next to me couldn't get off his phone. The stewardess is like, okay, it's time to turn it off, put it on airplane mode, put everything away, and he was just ignoring it, right? He was still texting and Facebooking and swiping and, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where so many people are, including me. I'm swiping, right? I still text and do all that stuff, but that's where people are. So I felt like to reach people, he and his wife needed to have a presence that could communicate with people when they needed a break from that, right? So Lakshmi got me in there, and then Saraswati came in my life literally because of his daughter. So Jyoti is a trained singer of traditional Indian music, and I've met their daughter 4 times, and in those 4 times, she had spoken 4 words to me the entire time. She's a very introverted, very quiet, shy, humble person. And the very last time that I met her, she said, hey, can I borrow the microphone equipment that you guys have for your videos that you're making because I want to make a song. And a friend of hers made a little background track with an acoustic guitar. She borrowed the microphone, and the next day she sends me a text message that she must have gotten the number from Manoj or Jyoti. And it was the most beautiful song that she sang in a day. Like, she did her own background tracks. There was clearly multiple layers of vocals that she had put into this from her home, right, with some friend of hers acoustic guitar background track. And I was so unbelievably inspired by that. I was like, I don't go on Facebook, my own Facebook account, but I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and share it there. I'm going to share it everywhere I can because people need to hear this, because even if she wasn't super proud of it because she's so humble, I was just amazed at someone that could be that creative, and that humble at the same time. So that inspired me to go, and when we just had the harvest moon, right? We just had that full moon. The Neil Young song came on, and I have this one who got away, and I haven't spoken with her in a long time. And for the first time in my life, I downloaded the karaoke version of that song, and I brought home the recording equipment, and I sat in my bedroom until 2 in the morning, recording myself singing over and over and over, putting my own little background, ooh, into this track, just so I could share it with her because his daughter inspired me. And before I go, Manoj told me, when I do this, that means you're done, right? When I do this little thing, that means you're done. I met a guy painting yesterday, and I had seen him and his partner dancing the night before, and she was off painting, and he was off painting, and I walked up to him, and I said, are you guys, like, co-painting? Is this, like, this really cool thing where she starts a painting, and then you finish it, or you start a painting, and she finishes it? And he's like, no, man, I just do my thing, and she does her thing. What do you do to be creative? Like, that's what he asked me. What do you do to be creative? And I told him the story about how I did this karaoke thing, and he's like, do you have a copy? Is it on SoundCloud? Can I get it right now? And so he gives me his phone right there to go ahead and put my contact information in so that he can keep bugging me, because he wanted to hear my silly little Neil Young song, that I had just done a couple days ago. So I kind of wanted to share a whole full circle of the thing of how we now start to give back, how we can be creative, how we can help inspire other people. That's what the cameras are about. I mean, they're a pain in the ass to set up and to do the video editing and everything else. But to give people the connection when they leave here, we did a live stream a couple of weeks ago, and it was really cool to see just 2 or 3 people that had been to a retreat, and they were chatting, on the YouTube live stream, right? So now one's in Colorado and one's in, wherever else, Utah, and they're just like, hey, Michael, good to see you on here, that kind of a thing. And so that's really what we were doing this all about, and so thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Kurt. So, the journey of all of us, I think, what Shiva teaches us is it's always about transformation. Never be content with the status quo. So the archetype for transformation, and I suspect we are all in some transformation or the other. It's like the joke, right? A Buddhist goes to Krishna, who's a pizza maker. So the joke is reversed. And the Buddhist orders pizza, and he says, "Make me one with everything." Yeah, it's being cute, right? So Krishna made a one with everything. The Buddhist gives Krishna $20 and asks for change. And Krishna says real change comes from within. Yeah. So this is the archetype for change, Shiva, right? The circle. And this is about really transformation. And the transformation can be a new job, a new relationship, a new move. In Kurt's case, he's coming out of Unabomber, Ted Kozinski, into a normal person. And for some reason, I get a lot of interesting people at my retreats. And for us, weird is cool because I love weird. We're all different, and I encourage that differenceness. So, or it can be archetype of anyone who's stuck in their life. Life should be a fresh flowing river, not a stagnant cesspool on the side. And most people, not most, but there are people who are tuned out because they are living the past over and over. It's very, I get it. There's a lot of childhood trauma. It's usually the childhood, and they have all this. They keep replaying it, and it's really hard, I know, to let go. But at some point, you got to move forward as a fresh river and evolve. But easy to say because I've been there. I've been depressed. I get it. So the circle is the world we create. The Sanskrit word for circle is jagat, but jagat is the thing that moves. Everything is vibratory. And each of us creates our own world. So when you wake up in the morning, you reboot your body, mind, but you're also rebooting your world, the world. The world doesn't exist until there's a conscious perceiver. So this is the flame, the circle of flames. Then to transform in a conscious manner, you need a sankalpa, right? A fire in the belly to transform. And that's the flame he holds in his left hand. And that's the drum. Let me talk about the drum, the damaru, which is everything is panda, fluctuation. The drum is also sustenance, where you create, then you have to sustain it. So the other message of transformation for me is I've had, after my doctorate, I didn't want to be a professor. I saw sorry, Drew, but he's going to get his tenure shortly, Jai Ganesh. But I saw the bullshit that goes on in the whole. I went to Cornell. My friends were like in the tenure process, and I said, I may as well deal with the same BS in industry. So I went into industry, worked in corporate America, then fit in because I have a brown nose already. What to do? Couldn't suck up all the time. And then I became entrepreneur, and I had like 4 companies, and they all failed spectacularly. Did great things. I was very competitive, very type A, and when you keep failing, it can lead to learned helplessness, right? In psychology, you can keep getting whacked. So I blundered into this totally by accident. My wife started this. So when you want to get out of learned helplessness, remember that book, Hillbilly, that? Yeah, Hillbilly Elegy. He talked about learned helplessness, and you need someone who believes in you. So my wife, I'm very grateful. Some of you has met Jyoti. She's a real scholar of Advaita Vedanta and a singer, as Kurt put it. So she has a gift of revealing the self because she's put in the work since the age of 4. She's been doing the bhakti puja, and now she's pure wisdom, the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. She's done the Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours several times. Because when you're in the flow, that 10,000 hours, guess what, goes to 1,000 hours. You're in the flow state, you know. And she's done the practices. So there's a lot of people who get inspired by her, but she's all about self-realization. And I always say she wears the spiritual pants in the family, yeah. So in our retreats, we do joint teachings. She talks about the self. She talks about the formless. I talk about the form. So it's like an example of, we've been married 33 years. So it's a more interdependent, right? So you have 3 relationships. On our next retreat, you're all invited. I just love your energy. It's in January. It's called Dopamine and Dharma. It's modern relationships through the lens of Hindu Buddhist deities. So, you have codependent, you have interdependent, or you have independent, where each partner. Interdependent is best. And those relationships happens in the 3rd quarter, a more self-actualized relationship. Coming back to Shiva, I do get distracted, so pull me back. The flame is the fire in the belly. The Damaru is the sustenance. Everything is fluctuation. The hair, the dreadlocks, is like, wild abandon. It's like free. You're free now. You feel this exhilaration, sense of freedom, because you are trying something new. Also, when you're stuck, you want to like change things around. It's like you're in a hot tub, hot water. It gets lukewarm. What do? Slosh it around. So metaphorically, that's this hair. Or who's been to Bhakti Fest in the past? Quite a few, right? And the locations were amazing. And then you come here. And this recording, I own it. This is on YouTube, but this is not like what happens here stays here in this tent. Yeah. But there's, it's like open. But have you anyone been to the showers? Who's camping and yeah. I mean, look, we have to be open. That's the message here. It's actually a positive message because you're getting out of Shiva pulls you out of your comfort zone. If your comfort zone in earlier Bhakti fairs, they're like a nice single shower. No, here you go to a shower. First of all, the water's got to be on. So it reminds me of India, right? And then, but this doesn't happen in India. When you go to a shower, somebody hoses you down. Literally. And then you cannot take your own soap. They have to foam you, And then, and then there are people like letting it all hang out. It's clothing optional. Literally, right? You've seen that. And so some older, people who've been coming to our retreats came last night and they were a little, this is not their wheelhouse, obviously. So they actually went to a restaurant and they did a sponge bath in that. So at this festival, many people tell me they're not doing showers. So when I hug people, I hold my breath. But I'll tell you, the message of this is get outside your comfort zone. It's okay. It's only 4 days. Then you go back to your first world issues where your biggest first world problem is finding a parking spot in Costco. Right? I live in a boring, curated suburb, There's no excitement. Here there's excitement. And who knows, at the shower, at the end, you might get a happy ending. All right, let me get back to Shiva. This is like spiritual stand-up comedy, okay? All right. So that's the metaphor of the hair, the jada, okay? But when you embark on a change in your life, a massive, okay, how would you normally feel? Anyone? One at a time. Fear, right? Scared. Anyone else? Yell it out. Excited? That's not normal. I'm also not normal. I feel you. Insecure, right? Lost, right? Because future is unpredictable. So you have no idea what's going to happen. And the entity within you is your ego, right? We want predictability. Whereas, You got to let it go. Like the YouTube song, someone else is in control. You know, you got to learn that someone else is literally in control. I learned it, and I'll show you the proof. So the mudra Shiva does to get out of this uncertainty is this Sharanagati mudra, where he raises his left foot and he does this. You see this? The hand gesturing to his feet means let it go, surrender. That's a very difficult thing to teach in a West, especially. But Bhakti is about surrender. This is the most amazing festival I go to, my favorite. That's because I also live in a motel. I don't take showers here. I got to get back to showers. So this means what Shiva teaches us is let it go. Surrender metaphorically is like a drop of water merging in the ocean. You lose yourself, but you get the infinite. You allow yourself to be led by the self. There's a far greater energy at work. When you truly surrender, with the other hand, Shiva does this. This is the Abhaya Mudra, which means fearlessness, right? He makes us literally fearless. We stop really measuring what society feels about us. There is some fear about what is going to happen, but you've done the work. Surrender is the work, the effort. You got to put in the effort. This is not a new agey path. Intensity is not a good idea. Consistency is better. That was a message. I've tried all these different things. It was intense. The type A. A consistent practice is better. That's why in our Patreon channel, it's like $10 a month. There's a lot of teachings, there's 35, 40 videos already. In 2 months, we're cranking out. 40 people it's part of our digital ashram, but it's consistent effort. It's like you double the penny every day. After a month, it comes to about $5 million. If you 1 penny, 2 pennies, 4 pennies every day, that's that's compounding. But this is more than compounding, okay? So you got to put in the work, and it's a lifelong practice. This is not like self-help, because the self doesn't need any help, okay? We are the self. So the metaphor I like to give is, I take these statues all over the country. I'm pretty much traveling until December. I started 2 weeks ago. I'm going all over. Nashville, Colorado, East Coast. I go to like Vermont. I take these on the plane, and you're not allowed that much weight, right? 50 pounds a box. They don't measure a hand carry-on though, right? So that is about... And now, I've been doing this 18 years. My man Kurt is traveling with me. So we got 4 boxes in Southwest, 50 pounds each. My carry-on weighs 60 pounds. They don't weigh that, Please don't tell that. His carry-on weighs 70 pounds. And he has a big backpack of filming equipment. He carries these 3 cameras, these mixers, and that weighs about 50 pounds. That's pretty heavy. So he's like, yeah, but he's a strong dude, And Jai Hanuman. And now we have to schlep it onto the plane, right? And schlepping is a Sanskrit word, right? And then, both of us are doing FWB. No, FWB, yeah. Which means I'm doing flying while brown. He's doing flying while bearded. So here's the bearded dude, I'm the brown dude. Slapping it on the plane, we have to put it overhead. And it was so heavy for me, I had to use my head to stick it there, right? With him, he's like, shaking, And the stewardess was right there, but I'm like smiling as if it's light. Yeah. See, and he's got a cute smile. He's smiling too while he's like shaking, But she said
she
something.
asked me, she goes, what do you got in there, bricks? And I thought like, gold bricks? Spiritual bricks?
There you go.
We were conscious, though. We put them on opposite sides of the plane to balance it out. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. So that's effort and grace. Effort is put in the work, grace makes you smile. That smile is like coming from the flow. You're doing your swadharma. So what happens is this is surrender, but it's effort and grace. Also, when you're engaged in transformation in this festival, you're in the bhav, right? Bhav comes from bhavana, the feeling of like oxytocin. We're all hugging, loving each other. Then you go out on the real world, back to work. On I-10, you might meet a bhav buster, right? People who are not resonant with your bhav. You like that bhav buster? So the bhav buster in your life is this figure at the bottom. That's called apasmara. Apasmara means, literally, smara means to remember. Apasmara means you get paralyzed. In fact, in Ayurveda, epilepsy is apasmara. You get like a deer in the headlights. You're like, for some reason, you're like freaked out. You're frozen. I remember teaching in Shivananda Ashram in Grass Valley. I know one of you all said Nevada City. I go there many times. It's been a while, but they did the original teacher training in America 40 years ago. I know Swami Sita, she's come to my house. But they take new people and have them chanting at 4 a.m. and people aren't used to that. So one guy literally, the first week, he got frozen. He wouldn't move, like the whole day. So there's philosophy, there's asana, chanting, but the dude is frozen. Because that's apasmara, you know. The stuff within us that paralyzes us, you know. So what does Shiva do? Step on his butt. And you have to push it down. This is always there. It can also be the ego, the ignorance, right? I do a whole 3-day workshop on this one. In fact, I'm doing a 2-day workshop on hero's journey because it's a lot of interactive team exercises. If you want to do that, that's in November. Saturday, Sunday, really easy, 10 to 5, and it's $54. I also feed you. It's part of a teacher training, but if you're in the area, you want to fly in, you're invited. If you want to know about these retreats and workshops, it's in my booth near the north stage. You can just take a picture of the flyer. You know, I really haven't been doing email lists, but he's changing all that, you know. But I would love to see you, and it's, I don't want your money. I want your mind so I can blow it up, you know. Seriously, but it's really, our Indian tradition is about free. Everything, these teachings should be free, you know. And I'm lucky I have this as a business. This has been paying the bills for that. So anyone who's been buying murtis, thank you. I'm grateful for your support over the years, you know. So this is apasmara. And then what Shiva teaches us is life is a dance, and step back. Don't make it a drama. So that stepping back is, in neuroscience, is called metacognition, where you can meditate, if you're in a tough position at work, somebody triggers you, but you can step back and tell yourself, isn't this interesting? When you say that, you're sort of being more the witness. You're literally witnessing yourself in this dance of life. This is a dance. So he says, make life a dance. Don't make it a drama. You have a choice. So for me, you're able to literally witness this whole thing. When you're able to witness your ego, guess where you are? You're in the self. So I was able to not only witness my ego, I was able to witness my whole life. Who's heard about my experience with the Nadi scrolls? Yeah, Michael, remember that, right? You were there in Moksha. So the Nadi scrolls came from Shiva and Shakti. So this is remember I talked about evidence-based spirituality? This is an example where thousands of years ago, Shiva and Shakti had a conversation about everyone's lives. So it's the Akashic records. And their son Ganesh wrote was a writer. That's why every Ganesh has a broken tusk. And he revealed these scrolls, everyone's lives, to 7 enlightened sages. So in the state of awakening, there's no time, no space. You're stepping outside. Imagine there's a painting on the wall. You go closer. you see a little bit, you walk further away, you get a bigger picture. So in quantum physics, it's called the observer effect. What is observed depends on the vantage point of the observer, you know. So these awakened sages saw everyone's lives, past, present, and future in a snapshot. And they wrote down on these scrolls called palm leaves, and they called Nadi scrolls. And they were passed way down from, thousands of years ago into this little village called Vaithiswaran Koil in Tamil Nadu. And I had heard about them from Dr. Deepak Chopra, who mentioned that, right? Yeah. And I used to teach at Deepak's retreats 15 years ago. I'm grateful because he's the person who started my thinking about them as archetypes. Because I wasn't into this while growing up in India. I was more agnostic, right? Which is an atheist without balls, right? So that's who I was. I didn't have a stand. I was saying agnostic is what to do, right? You're not sure. So, but then, I got involved with Deepak 15 years ago, and then, archetypically it was intellectual, but the bhakti I was lacking, So these scrolls kind of, my main takeaway was I got back the bhakti. So I went to this village, literally, where they have the scrolls. Remember, they came from Shiva Shakti thousands of years ago, and they take my right thumbprint. I go to the center, and for women it's the left thumbprint. Tamala, you might go there someday. I feel that. And by the way, I'm finally, after 18 years, after many people have asked me, I'm taking a trip to India with people. You're invited. Probably late next year. It's a little, I feel I'm being taken out of my comfort zone. So, but you're welcome. That's another thing I'm trying to do. I'll take you to places no white person has gone. Seriously, because there's so much touristing stuff, and no, I want the real India. I mean, when I speak to Indians, they get embarrassed because I use the cuss words like crazy with them. Hindi cuss words, right? So that's the energy I want. I want like common folk in India because they have bhakti, and I didn't have that. So this scroll place, they take my right thumbprint, and we have thumbprint as a prarabdha karma. So we come into the world with a backpack of karma, and from that backpack stuff comes out. So your life is determined from that backpack, okay? And the guy says, based on your thumbprint, there are 108 ways your life can take. And he says we have to find which way. So he brings a bundle of scrolls as a library in the back, and he says, I'm going to ask questions from the scroll, and you just say yes or no. Don't volunteer information. So I said this, And he opens the scroll. He said, this is saying your name is Prakash. I said, no. He tosses it. Next scroll, you're born 10 June 1950. I said, no. Another one, your mother's name is Radha. I said, no. And these questions are random. And then he goes in the back, gets more. And it always takes a long time, right? Everything takes a long time in India. And it kept going, several hours. It's hot. It's South India. And I'm thinking he's asking too many questions, right? It's like that movie, Inglorious Bastards. Remember that? Tarantino, the bar scene where they have the playing cards and King Kong. So I'm thinking that's what they're doing in neural net. It's called neural net simulation. It's a basis of machine learning and AI. It's Monte Carlo simulation. That's what I did for my PhD, So when you have enough data, you can construct something. So I'm thinking that's what they're doing. Suddenly a scroll popped up. It said, your name is Manoj Chalam. I said, yeah. But I thought they got it from the hotel I stayed. Yeah? Indians are very smart. Yeah. Then the next question said, you were born 12th May 1962. That's when I started to feel goosebumps because nobody had that information. Then it said your mother's name is Raja Lakshmi. Right on. It said your father's name is Venkatachalam. I'm from Kerala. Then it said your wife's name means light, and Jyoti means light. And it said your daughter's age. At that time, she was 10. Now she's 25, a millennial who's never been to a bank or a post office, you know. And then it said, I live overseas and I import art of a spiritual nature. So it knew what I was doing. It knew what I was doing at that phase in my life because it knew I was coming. It told me my itinerary for the next 2 days. It said, you're going to this temple, that temple. So it knew that very moment I'm coming. And then it said, Ganesh is my archetype. That's true. I've always connect to Ganesh, you know. Ganesh also gives you decisiveness. And I can get into, if someone asks me a question, how is decisiveness related to the spiritual path and free will versus determinism? I can geek out a little bit into that. And then it said, I teach a lot and I travel a lot, which I do. And I think it's a little too much. That's why I'm doing the digital ashram. I want people to come to our retreats in San Diego. We've been doing this 2 or 3 times a year. Teacher trainings happen, people, yoga studios come, and I don't charge, so I even feed them. I'm just grateful people just want to listen to me because my wife doesn't want to listen to me. So, and then it keeps going, and the guy says, in my teachings, I help find archetypes of people. And that's true, you know. I usually like to have people decide, otherwise, it's a bit sort of, you know, I, I mean, I think people give that power too easily to others. Does that make sense? I would rather have people rely on their own intuition. But usually I am able to find archetypes for people, like your Hanuman, and I've shared your Lakshmi, but you have multiple archetypes because you have many things going on. So Saraswati, Ganesh grounds you. So, we have different archetypes. And I'm able to usually, since I live with them, it's like intuition. Like a cop knows, he gives you a cop stare, right? You know. So that's similar. And I'm right about 80%. So that keeps me humble. And then he flips to the future and said what has already happened. So things like he said, don't drive late night, and I don't obey rules. So like an idiot, I drive late night. I got into a big car crash in San Diego. It said, we'll build a temple. And Michael, was from Colorado. We built a temple about 10 years ago. We have a warehouse, industrial complex, but we built a temple. That's why we do our retreats. So it's not like a fancy, curated place. I mean, there's a naval base right next door, but there's energy there. This is the world's, the largest collection of murtis in America are there. They're watching you. So when you see them, it's darshan, but they see you, that's kataksham. So when you have an archetype, see, in the middle of storytelling, I'm slipping teachings. So when you look at archetype, you get a hit, they're watching you. And then you have a sharp intake of breath. That's divine pranayama, where you don't breathe, you're being breathed. So if you don't live your life, you're being lived, that's awakening, that's moksha. And I'm going to get into moksha because this is about breaking the circle. This is about living as an enlightened being, okay? And this is usually the time during my workshop when it's an oh shit moment, because I got 23 minutes left and I have a lot to talk. I'm just what to do, right? Where was I? In the scroll story, right? Where was I? Yeah, the future, San Diego, temple, uh, don't drive, dark, and then murtis, and our whole effort now. It said we'll build an ashram, and in a way, this digital ashram is that. So the digital ashram is called Murtis and Vedanta. Really easy name to remember, right? And Murti is the form, Vedanta is the formless. It's really about the form and the formless. How do you use the form to go to the formless? Then finally it said, how our teachings would go, the ashram model, and finally it said, giving me the date I'm going to die. But he gave me a choice. I saw you, So remember this story. Remember what I said about storytelling. There's a cortisol moment, there's a dopamine, and there's a oxytocin. So I want one of you to tell me after I finish my story, at what point in my story was all three? I mean one at a time. Cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin. I do this with many stories. Okay, so he gave me a choice. Do I want to know? My question to you all is, who wants to know? Anyone want to know? What's your name? Samantha. You know you're not normal, right? I'm also not normal. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, I love it. Put yourself in my position. I'm a healthy skeptic. Even in our retreats, I encourage you to be healthy skeptics. I want to know. So it gave me the date I'm going to die. It's on a Friday, the 4th week of April. And it gave me the time also. And it's comfortably far away. I was like, oh, I felt like, I'm a skeptic. I felt like going out and standing in front of a truck. Yeah, see. Okay, the another message here is it doesn't matter what nationality you are. Many nationalities have gone, Americans, Chinese. There's a Discovery Channel documentary, an Australian woman have been there with 10 siblings. And the scroll pointed out all her 10 siblings, names, everything. This Discovery Channel has those scrolls, looks like Venetian blinds, a whole TV camera. We might go with a filming crew. And Kurt's a professional camera guy.
Oh yeah, professional. And I wanted to point out one thing. So we were just in Wisconsin, and it was raining like crazy, and he was driving, and he says, this is about the time where I really just like to pull over and sleep, because without my coffee, I'm just super tired. And I'm sitting there going, you're driving way too fast for this type of weather. And I actually said out loud, I go, just because the naughty scrolls told you when you're going to die doesn't mean that I'm not included somehow. So can you just slow it down a little bit? And luckily we pulled over, we switched, and I got to comfortably drive my slow speed the rest of the way home.
Well, our karmas are linked. That's another the reason we have karma is like spaghetti. It's like intersectionality if you're into social justice, right? It's all linked. There's a reason why you and I had that conversation, and I'm saying all our karmas are linked. And I'm going to say this again, you become very decisive when you have certainty. When you feel there's very little free will. Neuroscience experiments show on a shelf when you have 20 toothpastes, people don't buy. They get indecisive. TMI, right? Too much information. But when you have 2 or 3, you become decisive. Similarly, in your life, when you know the decision is already made, how would you react? You become super decisive. When you see a fork in the road, just take it. Right? Yogi Berra. That's that is an outcome on the spiritual path. You become very decisive. It's the same way Hanuman opens his chest and shows Ram and Sita. Think about that. If you are Hanuman, first of all, you need to know Ram and Sita within you. So Hanuman is the ultimate knower. So I'm jumping around. This unassuming monkey becomes a superstar of the Ramayana. Rama asks Hanuman, who are you? That's our existential question. Okay, now you're entered the spiritual path. You've done the work, Durga. You've done the turning point. For me, the scrolls were a turning point. I had a Kali moment. In the turning point, I was the witness. I was the heart of Shiva, the I am consciousness, the changeless in this circle. And I was able to witness my whole life. This is the ego. How the ego traverses. I was able to witness that. I have all the information. Okay, I have the copy of the scrolls, pictures. And I took Jyoti the next year. Her scroll was found in 15 minutes. Right on. So I was able to witness. Then the turning point is where the third quadrant is where bhakti comes in. Remember, this is devotion. Right? This is surrender. Like Jesus washes his disciples' feet. Same metaphor. Beautiful. So the devotion is of 3 types. When Rama asks Hanuman, who are you? This is Hanuman, right? There's a beautiful Hanuman which my friend Kavita is getting. Kavita was on stage yesterday. And I just felt an angelic energy. I've shared that, just the bow, you know. So it's Kavita and her friend, group here, beautiful people. So Hanuman is powerful because it's not just bhakti, is the highest bhakti called para bhakti. He knows. So when Rama asks Hanuman, who are you? Hanuman says, Deha bhavena dasosmi, which means when I take the viewpoint of my deha, my body, I'm your dasa. I'm your servant. Then he says, Jiva bhavena twadam shakaham, which means when I take the viewpoint of a jiva, a transmigrating soul, I am a part of you. That's what is called Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-duality. So there's three main philosophies in theism. Duality, there's you, there's God. In the Judeo-Christian, it's usually a bearded old white dude in the skies with an anger management problem, right? And then then in qualified non-duality, you transmigrate. Kabbalah is very similar to Vishishta Advaita, where you become part of God. And then what we teach is pure non-duality, where you are God. And finally, Hanuman says, Atma bhavena tvamevaham, which means when I take the viewpoint of Atma, I am you, I am God. And this is very disconcerting to people. When you proclaim, I am God. But where it can be misinterpreted is people say, I'm God, and they think they are on a pedestal. No. The real answer is, I am God and so are you. We're all the same. That's why I always encourage, don't give out your power. This thing is about free thinking. Our retreat is about three pillars. One is Advaita Vedanta, it's intellectual. We're bringing back deep philosophy, intellectual. There's a downward dumping of yoga, like downward dog. People think yoga is about, feeling good, going to festivals or the gong or no, those are addictions. Those are what I call experience addictions. One has to have the intellectual heft. And the main trunk of the Hindu Dharma is Advaita Vedanta. Professor Drew would agree. And there are different branches which are like ISKCON or Tantra, dualism. It's all good. They're all Sanatana Dharma, Vedic astrology. Main trunk is Advaita Vedanta, non-dual philosophy. The main gurus, the real Pakka tradition is that. And for that, you need intellectual. You cannot escape that. You need to use your brain and bear down. The second pillar is it's bhakti. So we have professors who come or LA school superintendents has come, but it's not secular. Like mindfulness is big in America, right? Alan Watts said mindfulness is Hinduism stripped for export. 2 weeks ago, I met the director of Stanford Institute, mindfulness, and he has to be secular, but at night he's bhakti. He cannot display his bhakti in the corporate world. It's all good, but it's better than nothing. But this is the real tradition. So it's Advaita Vedanta, intellectual. Second is pillar. Third is sadhana, practices. And Hanuman represents all of them. I get into Hanuman's leap. I have YouTube videos. And the shadows, he has shadow side he works on. Finally, the journey is moksha. Okay? And moksha is where Shiva is upside down. He breaks the circle. The circle is the wheel of samsara. Doing the same thing over and over, right? Here is broken it. Is upside down where it signifies no effort. That's really a flow state. The flow state is effortless. You can get a lot done with minimal effort. Okay? And in this tradition, Advaita Vedanta, the flame is the fire of wisdom. It burns through avidya. The Latin word video, to see, comes from vidya, knowledge. So avidya is like darkness, and 1,000 years of darkness in a cave is gone when you shine a light, because the darkness was never there, right? How can you get rid of something which is never there? Okay, so this represents freedom. Damaru means, aham's Purana. Ramana Maharshi talked about that. There's a spanda in everyone's heart, a fluctuation. The world comes from you. One side of the drum is the world, the other side is you. And the upside down represents no effort. And even apasmara has flipped. If you notice carefully, here Shiva steps on his butt. There is assisting. This is the old karma, prarabdha, the backpack. So if you are a carpenter, you'll continue to be a carpenter after awakening. Life goes on. It's like the Zen saying, right? Chops wood, carries water, before or after awakening. You're not going to walk around with a halo and put out a YouTube video saying, I'm enlightened, or you speak slowly and profoundly. You're going to be a regular person. You're not going to put on an act. I'm going to call shit out. There's way too much of that going around. Does that make sense? It's what I call pretend anandas. I mean, this is not the Indian tradition. The person is a regular, sane person who has the same issues as anyone else, but inside it just washes right off. So how do you practice your spirituality when nobody's watching? How authentic are you? Because the undercover cop has a lot of stress. He lives a double life. A lot of people look, I know the bowels of the operation. I've been teaching for 18 years. You don't want to see how sausages are made. Okay, that's a distraction. Let me check the time. Okay, thank you. So we talked about Shiva, we talked a little bit about Ganesh, we talked about Hanuman. Now, the third quadrant, I'm kind of jumping all over, but it's good, right? The third quadrant is you can end up finding your swadharma, what is called your calling in life. And they don't teach you this in college, right? It's something trial and error. And, it's like Krishna says in the Gita, it's important to do your swadharma and not someone else's. So you got to like work on yourself first. You fill your cup, and with the overflow you help people. Don't be in a rush to help people when you're not clear within. So people love putting jnana, which is knowledge, on other people and telling them what to do, right? And having bhakti to themselves. Think about it. They love themselves and they give knowledge to other people. Whereas knowledge has to be within, and bhakti you show to other people. Have compassion. Bhakti and compassion go together. So one has to work on yourself. Will they build the oxygen mask? Hanuman is a very fascinating archetype because third quadrant the bhakti comes in, but there's also fourth quadrant because he removes even your swadharma. Hanuman, when you get the energy, he makes you see Ram everywhere and you align yourself with Ram's will, divine will. When you do that, you're on maximum fire because there's no you anymore. It's not your swadharma. And Hanuman is not the flow state, he creates the flow state. Everyone's flow comes from you. So that's the energy of Hanuman. When you get the Hanuman archetype, I mean Ramdas, Krishnadas, or Jayutal, even Obama, if you Google Obama Hanuman, he has carried a Hanuman in his pocket the whole time in the election. And the Indian guys got excited, they shipped him a big one. Because size does matter sometimes, So politics, I was in Telluride in 2016 and I mentioned, you don't mention politics, right? Gets you in trouble, but I said at that time I felt Bernie Sanders was authentic, right? He hasn't enriched himself. I may not agree with everything, but dude was real, Even take a child, they like Bernie Sanders, something about his energy, So I said I like that energy, and a woman right there, right where you're sitting in the corner, she comes up in Telluride, right? It's a box canyon, it's a destination. She comes up to me, says, I'm Bernie's daughter, Heather Sanders. What are the odds now? Right? And then furthermore, she's the producer of Sedona Yoga Festival. She invited me to teach. I've been teaching there last 3 years. I go there in 2016. I meet Jane Sanders, Bernie's wife. And I told her the story of Obama and Hanuman, how Hanuman inspires you. And I gave her a small Ganesh. I have a small Ganesh in my booth called the Rodi Ganesh. And she said she'll put it in Bernie's briefcase. And then Bernie won like 7 or 8 primaries in a row. Remember, he got on a roll? And you know the end of the story. He didn't win the whole thing because she did not buy a big murti. Yeah. Sorry, I'm bad. I'm bad. Okay. Lakshmi. Lakshmi, literally, the root word is Lakshya. Lakshya is goal. And she fulfills whatever goals you have, wherever you are in a hero's journey. So that's why Lakshmi is not just the third quadrant. I would say, and I think Kurt did he focused on the goddesses because Navratri is coming up, right? 9 nights. First 3 nights people worship Durga, removing the shadow. Next 3 nights is Lakshmi. She fills the heart with goddess, with goodness. Last 3 nights is Saraswati for wisdom. It's called Vidyaramba. So it's starting tomorrow. So Navratri, 9 nights. Okay. But Lakshmi is not just this, all 4 quadrants, Mahalakshmi. Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. There are 4 quadrants. I don't want to go there because of time. But wherever you are in the Abraham Maslow, all the way up to self-actualization, Lakshmi can give you. So the lotus means Shri, luminosity. Some people have that energy. The way they talk, the way they dress, they create like beauty. It's like a luminosity. It can be men or women, like Lakshmi. Like Kurt, if you come to my booth, he's like, he set up the booth, he's strong, a lot of statues, but he also has fabrics all over. It's like a beautiful feminine principle. I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about masculine, feminine principle. So Kurt creates beauty. That's Shri. He's got that Lakshmi. And that's one of his archetypes. And, that's his inner uterus. He's created beauty. Dude's got 2 sewing machines. Don't be misled by his big beard. And she's got the owl. Lakshmi's vehicle is the owl, which is really an ability to see through the dark. These are owl feathers, Very beautiful archetype. Mahalakshmi, Shri. Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. One of the ways you work with the archetype, and there are 5 ways, and I'll email you the document if you like. One way is you meditate with the archetype. And I thought we'll have time to go through that, but what to do? What you do is you create an altar, you meditate. Let's say it's Lakshmi. You're going, each time you do that, you're on an individuation journey. This one. So you close your eyes, and the idea is your thoughts aren't relevant. We get like 70,000 thoughts a day. They come and go. It's the space between your thoughts. The space between your thoughts is the self, consciousness. Your thoughts are overlaid on consciousness. So to go there, to drop in the chain link, you chant the mantra. Om Shrim Mahalakshmi Namaha. Om is the oneness. Shrim is the bija, which is the intellect layer, intuitive. Mahalakshmi is the mind. So you have the oneness, you have the intellect, you have the mind, Mahalakshmi, which needs a form. Namaha is the articulation, either vocally or to the mind. So you chant the mantra Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. What you're doing is you're dropping a chain link into the oneness. You're dropping a chain link into the gap between your thoughts. And you may not remember this. I have YouTube videos, or I can send you a document. We have practices on Lakshmi. Very powerful. With Lakshmi, you do a double meditation. In Buddhism, it's called shamatha. It's called deity yoga. It's very strong in Tibetan Buddhism and tantric practitioners, yoga practitioners. So the gap increases slowly. Your thoughts will wander, but you keep coming back to the mantra. And when the gap sort of increases, like a 10-20 minute meditation, you open your eyes to Mahalakshmi, your mind is susceptible. It's like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, susceptible with hypnotic suggestion. You open your eyes, the symbols, you suck the symbols within, and it triggers the symbols within you. The outer triggers the inner, and you awaken the Lakshmi within you as your archetype. You make it more into your subconscious, which is about 88% of your mind. We're largely a subconscious. Paradoxically, in the flow state, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. You're operating from the subconscious. This is what Alan Watts calls floodlight consciousness. It's fascinating, the whole journey. And with Lakshmi, we get into what is called, the Len McTaggart's law of attraction, but it's altruistic. If somebody is challenged, abundant, you can pray for them and have Lakshmi. It's very powerful. A lot of research shows that. Okay, this is the Varada Mudra. She gives you boon. Not material, not just material, but spiritual. This is Abhaya, fearlessness. You become fearless. Her counterpart is Saraswati. Very beautiful archetype for creativity, music. She has a mala. They go together. They're sister goddesses. She has a mala that's awakening. She has a what looks like an iPhone 11 in her hand, but it's a book. It's the Vedas. And this is Bhakti. This is intellectual, this is Bhakti. At the end of the sitar is a swan, Hamsa. That's a sadhana. So Saraswati is all three pillars. Intellectual, Bhakti and sadhana. Very beautiful archetype. I wish I could go deeper. Tara is the second quarter and the fourth quarter for compassion, for helping people. Very beautiful Buddhist archetype. Durga, we talked about it, for the shadow. Kali is massive transformation. People love Kali. Even our ex-governor Schwarzenegger loved Kali, used to call our state California, right? This is Sri Chakra. We talk about, it's part of Sri Vidya Tantra. How do you go from many to one? This is deep. There's a 1-year course offered on this. Part of the archetype in the third quadrant is relationship. A self-actualized, I talked about the interdependent. This is Krishna Radha, has the highest actualized relationship. The bottom line is, this whole thing is a buffet with the archetypes. That's why there are so many, because we are so many. We're all different. And if you're not hungry, you don't have to choose. There is no one way, and none of the above is a good action also. So I'm saying I would love to help you wherever you are in your hero's journey. If you have any questions, comments, insights, I'm at my booth near the North Stage. It's in another zip code, but same time zone. So you guys are amazing, with your deep attention, because in this economy, deep attention is a real currency. I'm grateful. We would also love your help. Kurt, do you want people there to schlep it to the car? Okay, you got it. So let's have one big Jai Ganesha. Jai Ganesha. Thank you.